judge the Middle East a bit differently from the way you see it on our TV screens. Because a funny thing happened today and yesterday in the Middle East, in thousands of homes and streets all across the Arab world. Nothing. Nothing happened. People went to work, they sat in traffic, they got to their jobs, or they sat around in cafes, they smoked shishas, they had food, they went back to their families, and in thousands of homes all across the Middle East, nobody got blown up. Nobody caught fire, there were no demos, there was no Quran waving, there was no angry outbursts of, of various things in much of the Middle East. And the point I'm trying to make here is the Middle East that I fell in love with when I was your age, it's still there, it's changed, but a lot of the qualities that drew me to it, its incredible diversity, its hospitality, its charity, are all still there. And before I continue, I'm just going to give you a little hint. This is a kind of collection of photographs that I've put together over the years in the Middle East with music. And just to give you a little hint of the diversity of that place, because people often say, what do the Arabs think? That's like saying, well, what do you all think? You're going to have different ideas. You're going to think completely differently, probably, to somebody else about something. And it's the same in the Middle East. It's very, very diverse. So we'll just run the pictures. Okay, so you get the picture. It's pretty diverse. There is a massive difference between different parts of the Arab world. But before I answer Charlie's question, which is really your question, I guess I should address, why did I study Arabic? Why did I choose that? And the answer is kind of a combination of fascination, and also I was extremely bored of what I was doing. At your age, I was staring out of a rainy window in a Wiltshire school, thinking, A-levels, right, okay. And I took history, and I got a D in history. And my parents insisted that I retake this at a crammer in Oxford. So I took it again in November, I got an E. So this was not good, but they were nothing if not persistent, my parents. They made me take it again in January, and I got an O. I hadn't even heard of an O, but apparently it means it's not even an A-level. So I'm not very good at saying things that happened in the past. But what I did know I wanted to do was a really difficult but useful language, Arabic. And I thought, okay, here's a language that is more or less the kind of common language across 22 countries, different dialects, different accents, but the basis of it is the same. And the religion that I'll study with it is the religion of a fifth of the world's population. So it's pretty important. So I got into Exeter to do this, and the best bit about it was at the time it was the only university that sent you away for a whole year to the Middle East. And so we were sent to Cairo, and it was the best place to learn the kind of living language of Arabic, because Egyptians love to play with words. So, I don't know, like a mother saying to her kids crossing the street, "Hasab al-Arabiya tataklak," watch out or the cars will eat you up. And it's like, you know, I can think of no better way to say that in English. And there was one day when I was showing friends around the souk, Khan al-Khalili, in Cairo, and I decided to go up this little back street. I went up these stairs before my injuries, and I knocked on a door. I don't know what made me do it. And the door opened, and this really very large woman came out in what's called a Malay Aleph, a kind of house coat. And I mean, her biceps were bigger than my legs. And I was quite kind of intimidated. And she said, "Naam, yes, what?" And I said, "Well, could I come in and see inside an Egyptian house? I'd never been inside an Egyptian house." And her face melted into this huge, wonderful smile. "Ahlan wa sahlan, welcome, Betna Betak, our house is your house. Come in," she said. And I became friends with that family. And I moved in with them for a bit, and it was just brilliant. I mean, at night there were things kind of running over my sleeping bag. I brought a sleeping bag, and I couldn't work out what this thing was that was running over it. It turned out to be a stoat. I'm okay with that. Stoats are clean. That's all right. But it was fantastic. It was a shared experience that I fasted with them during Ramadan and feasted with them in the evenings and played backgammon. And, you know, the Egyptians taught me to cheat really well at it. I mean, you will never win backgammon off an Egyptian. They're very good at it. So it was a great experience. It was lots of fun, and it gave me a kind of lasting love of the Arab world. I later kind of put that into practice. I drifted into banking. Don't ask me how. Huge mistake, but, you know, we all make them. And I ended up doing the right thing, which was journalism, broadcast. And I've been incredibly privileged to see some of the changes in the Middle East firsthand, to be in the Middle East when 9/11 happened, and to go around asking people about it. You know, why do you think this happened? And you get lots of different answers, lots of different conspiracy theories, and so on. That led me to a situation where I was in Saudi Arabia in 2004 with my cameraman, and we went to cover an attack that had been carried out by Al-Qaeda in eastern Saudi Arabia, where quite a few people had been killed. And we were filming in Riyadh when we got ambushed. And it was just a case of wrong place, wrong time. It was just, had we been there 10 minutes earlier, 10 minutes later, we'd probably been okay. But the bad guys were driving past us, saw us. Their commander gave a quick set of orders, said, "Right, you take out the cameraman, you take out the reporter." And they came out, the first guy came out smiling, and he said, "Salaam alaikum, peace be upon you." And as he said that, he was drawing a pistol out of his a hidden pocket in his thobe. And the kind of incredible crushing feeling I had, not only the sheer terror that I was about to be shot, but a sort of feeling of betrayal, like, wait a minute, hang on, I've just spent 20 years trying to get to understand, to understand the language and the culture and the people, and always telling people about what a great place the Middle East is. And now I'm getting shot? This isn't right. But, you know, these kind of thoughts go through your brain in very fast fashion. So I wasn't able to get away. I got shot 6 times. I was incredibly lucky to survive. But that's the sort of elephant in the room. That's why I'm in a wheelchair. But I was able to compartmentalize when I was 7 months in hospital. I was able to put to one side, okay, those were the bad guys. They are not representative of the wider Middle East. Now, of course, there are major problems in the wider Middle East, and those problems are not going to go away in a hurry. But the outpouring of sympathy I had from people right across the region who wrote in to say, "We are so sorry about what happened to you. We're so ashamed of it." I mean, some people were really angry about it, saying, "May those people burn in hell," and so on. You know, but it reaffirmed my kind of faith in the region, and I've been back many, many times. So when I look at the Middle East today, you know, it's terribly sad when I look at what's happening in Syria and Iraq and Yemen, all countries that I've had the pleasure of visiting. But what is it that is making those countries so troubled? And in my view, I mean, there are many different reasons for it. You can blame the 2003 invasion, you can blame religion, you can blame sectarianism, but ultimately, in my view, it comes down to one thing: bad governance. not governments, but governance, you know, the way people are governed. That's what kicked off the Arab Spring in 2011. There were many things, but people wanted a bit of dignity. They wanted to be able to get a job without having to have connections that their uncle was high up in the ministry. They wanted to be able to live a normal life and have all the things that you and I take for granted. If we think our government sucks, we vote it out, okay? We have freedom of association, freedom of the press. The judges, you know, the courts are independent of government. They challenge government. We're used to that. We've grown up with it, and we can vote. But these things don't happen across that whole region. And that is what leads to this kind of boiling frustration that a lot of people have. One of the better governed countries is Morocco. But even there, a few days ago, there was a guy who had hauled a tuna out of the sea, a fisherman, and this was his livelihood. It got confiscated by the police. They said, no, you don't have the right license. And they threw it into a rubbish cart, a rubbish truck. He jumped in to retrieve it, and he got crushed to death by the compactor. And that sparked off riots. That's exactly how the Arab Spring kicked off in Tunisia at the end of 2010. So a little spark can set things off. Now, I think a lot of us got the Arab Spring wrong, us being, you know, people in the media, so-called Middle East experts. You know, I think we kind of got swept up in the whole Twitter, Facebook thing, thinking that this is going to be the way it is. And sadly, it hasn't turned out very well at all. Now, I went back to Saudi Arabia in 2013, 9 years after being shot there, because I wanted to understand why it was that this hugely important country in the Middle East, why hadn't it succumbed to the Arab Spring? I mean, if you look at, you know, it's probably the least democratic country in the Arab world, one of the least democratic countries in the world, and yet there's an extraordinary degree of contentment there. And I'm no defender of the way people are ruled there, but so many of the people that we asked they gave different reasons, but they said, we feel loyal, or it's our religious duty to respect our rulers. Mostly, I think it was fear of the unknown. People looked over their shoulders, and they looked at what has happened to Syria. It's in flames. They look at Yemen. It's in flames. They look at what had happened in Libya. It's complete breakdown. It's a failed state. And they thought, maybe, you know, this is a big leap into the unknown. Plus the fact that the police are pretty strong there, and, you know, there are informers, and you're not allowed to demonstrate. The ruler at the time, King Abdullah, moved very quickly to release a huge amount of money. So there was a kind of financial sop to discourage people from starting an Arab Spring in Saudi Arabia. The religious leader announced that it was haram, it was religiously forbidden to come out and demonstrate. And then, of course, there's the whole sort of tradition thing. It's not really a place of demonstrations in Saudi, but it was absolutely fascinating to go back there. It took me 9 years to do it, to lead up to doing this. Not because I was incredibly scared, partly because I promised my parents that I wouldn't go back while they were alive. I broke that promise, but my mum forgave me. So going back it was a big leap, I guess, and it was absolutely fine until I went to the hospital room in Riyadh, where I had come round from my injuries, and I took 6 bullets, and for 48 hours, it was really touch and go whether I would live or not. And I remember coming round in that room, and my wife was there, and I asked, where's Simon Cumbers, my cameraman? And she said, I'm sorry, he didn't make it. That was a really, really tough moment for me. And going back into that room brought it all back. And some of the hospital staff who were there that night in 2004 that I was brought in, they were still there when we went back 3 years ago. And there was a Swedish surgeon in his white coat, and he said, you were the color of this white coat. We just didn't think you had a chance. We didn't think you'd make it. But I was saved by this incredible surgeon, a South African, Peter Bouts. I owe him my life. He had a pioneering technique of surgery, which involved not being too intrusive, just basically stemming the internal bleeding, damage control, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And that saved me. So having kind of broken the seal and gone back to Saudi Arabia, I don't have a big problem in going back there. It's a hugely important country, and I will continue to go to the Middle East. So I think kind of my message to you today is don't be put off by what you see and read in the newspapers about the Arab world. Yes, some really bad things are happening in Syria and Yemen and Iraq and Libya, and that's a lot of countries. But there's so much else in the Middle East to explore. You can go to Morocco and have an amazing time. Go to Oman, go camping in the dunes, meet people, and you will find a very receptive, warm population that will greet you with open arms. I mean, obviously not if you're kind of getting drunk on the beach in a very conservative place, but providing you kind of respect their morals and their standards, they'll be fine. They would love to see you, and they love young people there. So don't give up on the Middle East. It's a fascinating place. It's going through a really difficult time right now, but if you've ever thought about exploring it and getting out there, people tried to put me off when I was your age. An old explorer said, oh, forget it, it's all ruined by petrol or oil or something, and I ignored him, and I'm really glad I did that. And it's probably more interesting now in 2016 than it's ever been. So enjoy it, get out there, and have fun. Thank you.